So I'm going to call to order this last City Council meeting of the year on December 19th, December 19th, 2019 to order. If you're able, can you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have a published agenda this evening. Is there any additions? Can I get a motion?
I move that we pass the agenda and consent agenda as listed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this agenda and consent agenda items for this night's meeting. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We have an agenda. And first up on our agenda, under public recognitions and presentations, is a recognition for the completion of an Eagle Scout project. Jen.
Well, good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Tonight it's my pleasure to introduce to you an incredible young man, Mr. Irfan Ahmed. And he completed his Eagle Scout project this year at Holman Park. Some of you may recall there used to be a big sign in the baseball field at Holman Park that said Holman Field. And this sign was removed at some point due to deterioration, but was missed by the Holman family and also the community. So when Irfan came to the Parks Department looking for a project, thankfully he was up for designing the new sign. And he even went above and beyond by helping to reline the basketball court that's at Holman Park. I'll let him share the project with you. He's got a presentation that he's prepared for you all tonight. And so I just want to thank him for doing the project. And also I want to thank our Park Maintenance Department in the Public Works Department for working with him on this project. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening. First off, I'd like to thank you all for your time. Now, I'll start off with what an Eagle Project is. An Eagle Project, first off, is a culmination of a Scout's leadership training. Everything they've learned for usually around 7 years, all the skills come together into planning a project, carrying it out, and leading other Scouts. This project also enables other Scouts, usually younger Scouts, to do things and serve their community. This project is supposed to serve and benefit the community, and it can't serve or benefit the troop itself or the organization of Scouts. So it has to be a nonprofit. Moving along, background on Holman Park, Jennifer touched on this, that this park used to be before we had the RAC, the Regional Athletic Complex, as some of you might know it, Holman Park used to be a center for sports around here. You can see in this photo we've got lights and it's quite packed there. So this baseball field was the go-to baseball field. And you can also see, I got another photo of it. You can see there's a sign in there. That sign was not there when I looked at it in February. I've got some pictures in February as well. Go. Yeah, so this is how the baseball field was when I found it in February. We don't have light fixtures anymore, and there's no sign, and it's sort of a plain baseball field. So I talked to the team, and they told me I could work on that as an Eagle project. When I talked with my troop, they told me this is a great Eagle project, but I could probably do more. So I also found another piece of the park, the basketball court. Now, the grass grew over into it a little bit on the side, and the hoops aren't actually centered. But the main important thing is there's no lines on this basketball court. So I thought that'll make a great second part to my Eagle project. Without further ado, I'll show you guys what the sign looks like now. If you can see, it's 6 feet tall, 2 boards on there, 14 feet long. I don't remember how big that font is, but yes, we did print out those letters before cutting them. Originally, we planned to have steel letters on there, But we soon found out that the sign company does not make steel letters of that size. So we cut them out at home out of acrylic and painted them. And then the basketball court, or we got more photos about that. You can see there's some pictures of scouts working on the first and last fence posts. We got the team there. There were more scouts present, but unfortunately they had to leave before the photo. And there's some pictures of assembly and prefab. Yeah, that was the sign. Lots of fun. And this here is the basketball court with the new lines. And I remember after we finished it, actually during the whole entire project, there were people trying to play on it. And I didn't want to be the guy. I actually had my dad tell them because I didn't want to be. Okay, on one of the days, I think cars started piling up. There was like an unofficial like basketball tournament that was about to go down, and there's like crowds of people showing up, and I was like standing there with my paint buckets. Like I'm one guy with paint, and there's like 40 and counting. You know? So luckily, when we told them, they're like, okay, and we found them another court to play on, because apparently, this is one of the few public, full court outdoor basketball courts in this area. So this is actually pretty important. I didn't know that because I don't play basketball usually, but this is one of the few full courts. So it's actually pretty significant to those who use it. And another man who was walking his dog told me that apparently he was walking his dog at night, and he noticed that the basketball court was glowing. It's like, oh, that would be the lines. So it seems everybody likes it, and I'm glad they do. We did not put the outer lines on the sides, as you can see, because one, it's a little lopsided, and the grass was growing on one side, so I figured it was best to leave that out. But other than that, that's the basketball court. We got some more photos of that as well. Yeah. For that paint, we went with all-weather outdoor paint, typically used for houses, but this was used instead of striping paint, which would have otherwise been used, because striping paint would have only lasted about a year at most. You guys know how much it rains around here. This paint should last several years. I want to say 5, but we'll see how hard it rains. And yeah, it's just some numbers. I mentioned the sign is 14 feet by 2 feet, that's the board, and it's 6 feet tall to keep it within codes. And yeah, we got 3 fence posts on there, standard fence posts. The basketball court, can't actually see that, but we used all-weather paint on it, and the lines, when I drew them up on paper, I modeled them after standard lines that they would use on official basketball courts. It's not the same exact size, but it should satisfy anybody who's trying to play basketball. With that, yeah, final cost, I think that says $853 approximately. That was paid for by my family. This does not come out of the city's budget at all. It's charity. And total work hours, I believe that says 130.5 hours. That's not me, that's the hours I worked and the hours that everybody who worked on this project worked. And I thank all of them. I wish they could be here, but everybody did a good part in this, and it's a community project. With that, I'd like to thank you all for listening to my little spiel.
Neat.
Okay, so again, we want to thank Irfan for his contributions to the City of Lacey Parks and Recreation Department, and I think the city council members might want to shake your hand. So.
Most definitely.
Well done.
Yeah. So that was a great project, and love all the work that Eagle Scouts do in our community. They've done a great job of beautifying our parks and trails, and Holman Park is a park that's very near and dear to my heart. I live right across the street, and so as a kid I spent many hours in that park playing baseball in that field, and of course basketball on that court as well. So thank you so much for beautifying that. Next up on our agenda is some commendations for a couple citizens. Chief?
Good evening, everybody, Mayor, council members. A great deal of pleasure this evening to recognize two of our community members through incredible acts of heroism to assist other community members during a violent assault. There's only about one police officer for every 1,000 community members that we have here in the city of Lacey, and we live in an incredibly safe community. That's because of the support and cooperation that we have from our community members. Without the community, we simply could not do our job in any capacity, and that's what makes this such a special place to live. Officer Bartz, can you come up here and help me with the first award, please? It's also very special in the sense that we have the two awards were for coming to the assistance of two very different sides of our community. One was a very young child, and the other was one of our police officers. So Jaylen, would you come on up here, please? On November 13, 2019, Officer Joshua Bartz of the Lacey Police Department was advised of an assault that occurred at River Ridge High School. During the investigation, he learned that a 5th grade student had been assaulted while he was on the high school campus on a Sunday, November 10, 2019. River Ridge High student Jaylen Pitre observed what was happening and knew that it was wrong. Jaylen observed the victim was trying to fight back but was unable to get away. Jaylen took it upon himself to stop the assault and remove the two older students from the victim. Jaylen helped the victim to his feet, and he was able to get away. In addition, Jaylen stopped the two suspects from chasing the victim. Jaylen acted with the utmost bravery by taking action and assisting the child who was in trouble. We, the Lacey Police Department, formally recognize Jaylen Pitre for his willingness to do the right thing and protect the child. So it's my pleasure to present that to you,
Hey,
wait a minute, though. Jaylen, you gotta get the congratulatory from all our folks here. Lots of people that want to thank you, Jaylen. Very special young man. Thank you. All right. Mr. Vehara, would you please join us? And Officer Ely, would you please join us, please? We have a tough job, but I think that all of us here would tell you that we absolutely love what we do, especially in this community. On November 9th, 2019, about 8:45 p.m., Lacey Police Officer Mark Ely was attempting to catch a suspect who fled on an inner-city bus after committing a theft at the Walmart store on Galaxy Drive Northeast. Officer Ely intercepted the bus on Martin Wade near Hensley Drive and contacted the suspect at the rear door of the bus. Officer Ely requested that the suspect exit the bus so he could discuss the theft. As the suspect exited the bus, he immediately attacked Officer Ely, and they became engaged in a physical altercation. Officer Ely's initial attempt to subdue the suspect was unsuccessful, and the altercation continued. Nathaniel Vehara, a longtime resident of Lacey, was riding on the bus that night and observed the altercation between Officer Ely and the suspect. Mr. Vehara exited the bus and assisted Officer Ely in subduing the suspect. He then ran into the street and directed arriving officers to the area of the altercation. Mr. Vehara is recognized for his marked bravery and heroism, whereby he placed himself in extreme personal danger to assist Officer Ely in obtaining control of the violent offender until Lacey Police backup officers arrived. Mr. Vehara, thank you very much. Very much appreciated. You know, I called Mr. Vehara to thank him immediately afterwards. First thing he said to me was that he just couldn't believe there's other people on the bus, just sat and watched.
Yeah. Yeah. Great example.
Thank you, Chief. Well, those are two just amazing examples of what makes our community so special. You know, it's where when all of us pitch in and do what's right for our community, great things can happen. And these are two just wonderful examples of people stepping up and helping out in our community. So on behalf of the Lacey City Council, thank you so much for what you've done and helping make our city even safer. Next up is public comments on items not on the agenda. And we do have one person who signed up, Lisa. You know the role.
I do. Good afternoon and evening, council members, mayor, and members of the city around us here. My name is Lisa Gelati. I'm the executive director and founder of Build a Bus Home, and we have created a mobile hygiene fleet, and we are very proud to announce that we are in service as of this weekend. So want y'all to know that we've been working tirelessly and looking forward to helping humans all around Thurston County become clean through hygiene, through our shower trailer, and we have a water truck that will collect the wastewater, and we're working on creating a bus that will be laundry and storage for lockers, as well as for toilets as well, so that's coming soon. And so I just want to give you that information. There's brochures if anyone would like some, so thank you so much for always listening, and we're here to help all the humans in here and everywhere to be healthy and safe.
And you have a grand opening on Sunday?
We do have a grand opening on Sunday. It's going to be a church in Olympia, and they've asked us to keep it less public, but
No problem.
we've invited some pertinent people like yourselves. So just want to thank you for always listening and supporting, and if you have any concerns or questions or would like more information, let me know.
Thank you,
I'm here.
Lisa.
Thank you.
It's been really great to see Lisa stick with it. She had this idea that there's this service that's needed in this community, and she's just worked tirelessly. So thank you, Lisa, for all you've done. And it's so great to see your vision come to be a reality. Yeah. Is there anyone else wishing to address this council on any items not on the agenda? Seeing none, next on our agenda is the mayor's report. And I first would like to let people know that Councilmember Greenstein's not here this evening. He is recovering from hip surgery that he had on Wednesday. And so I talked to him earlier today, and he's recovering well, but I told him, stay home, recover, and we'll see him after the first of the year, and hopefully he'll be fully recovered. And he was doing pretty well, so it's good to see that he's recovering. But Under Mayor's report, I also am making one recommendation is to appoint Cameron Ross as a youth representative to the Parks Board. This was a situation where we actually appointed someone else to the a youth park representative, and this other person wasn't able to make any of the meetings, and so we reached out to this person and said, you know, we're gonna. You need to either be active or we're going to find someone who can replace you. And I had already interviewed Cameron Ross, who was just a great candidate as well. And so we reached out to Cameron, and he says he'd be happy to be a part of the Parks Board. And so that is my recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Cameron Ross as the youth representative to the Parks Board. Is there any other discussion? Deputy Mayor?
Which school does he go to? Or-
Timberline.
Timberline,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion's been carried, and Cameron will be our new youth representative. Next up is the city manager's report.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, before you tonight is a memorandum of understanding between North Thurston Public Schools and the City of Lacey. You may recall in 2019, the council set aside $250,000 for the Family and Youth Center. As you know, that is modeled somewhat after the Lacey Veteran Services Hub in terms of providing critical services to those families and students in need, and some of those students actually confronting homelessness. The MOU basically outlines how those dollars will be spent. We have initially agreed that we can assist in enhancements to shower as well as laundry facilities, and those will be the first project that will be used for the $250,000. North Thurston Public Schools will also be signing this MOU, but this will be the relationship for those dollars being spent, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Can I get
I
a
would
motion?
move to authorize the city manager to sign the memorandum of understanding between the City of Lacey and North Thurston Public Schools, providing council-approved funding for the North Thurston Public Schools Family and Student Resource Center.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Deputy Mayor?
This is if you haven't been there already, this is an excellent resource center, and they do an excellent job. And I'm just really pleased it came to fruition.
Okay, Councilman?
I just have to echo it. You know, we had a chance, was it last summer, to walk through, and it's just such a right thing to have this service available at the school, because, you know, how embarrassing is it if you have a need to travel or whatever, but it's just right there at the core of where the issues might be, and I just think it's another great example of the city's great compassion.
Councilman?
One of the impressive things I learned during the actual open house they had once it was up and going earlier in this past fall was they already have tangible results of how this is making a big difference with kids. They've seen an improved graduation rate from something like 48% up into the mid to high 70s percentage. That's awesome. I mean, it's really amazing that they've been able to do that. So if you ever wonder about putting our resources to something like that, just look at how some lives really got helped and turned around.
Councilman?
This place and the countless volunteers that work in our community, they give these students that a lot of times miss school because, you know, they're embarrassed or, you know, this gives them hope and you know, restores a lot of dignity and pride in the community. And it's just really awesome. I mean, you could get a jacket there, you can get clothes, socks. It's amazing. You get a shower, and it just really provides hope that wouldn't normally be there.
I think this has been a really kind of a great example of Lacey's leadership when it comes to tough issues, and what we found for solutions. And with the Lacey Veteran Services Hub, let's get all the service providers under one roof and make it as easy as possible for people who are in need to receive those services. And you can see that's what has been replicated here with the North Thurston Public Schools. They've seen the success that we have had at the Lacey Veteran Services Hub and are replicating it there in their Family Resource Center. And so I'm really proud of the fact that Lacey has, led on tough issues and that we've been successful, and other people are noticing and are replicating that, and like they are here. So I wholeheartedly support this. Is there any other further discussion? It's been moved and second to authorize the city manager to sign this MOU between the City of Lacey and North Thurston Public Schools. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And now we're on to standing general committees. And first up is the Land Use Committee. Councilmember Cox.
Righty. Land use met on November the 26th, and we had conversations about annexation policy amendments, as well as low-density zoning consolidation. The annexation part of it was necessary because of changes that have occurred. Section 3.135, I'm sorry, I know this is dull, but anyway, the amendment required annexation of property located within what's known as the urban growth area before being connected to a city-owned utility. And we're doing some annexation now. We're extending the utility to that, so it required some fine-tuning of this. There was a public hearing held on the 3rd with our Planning Commission on this. And then on the low-density zoning consolidation, this is just really getting going. I know the Planning Commission held a public hearing earlier in October, but we backgrounded some on what staff is proposing in terms of amending our zoning codes for residential. This is all about, how we grow as a city, and I think we're going to be taking a slow and thoughtful approach on it.
Great.
That is that report.
Next up is the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee met back on November 26th. Our item that we discussed was the business occupation tax ordinance that we passed at our last council meeting. And so we've already gone over this subject. So that's my report. General Government. Deputy Mayor.
The General Government and Public Safety Committee met November 26th, and there was 2 items. One was the energy savings performance contract for the Lacey Veteran Services Hub, and the other was the yearly review of property retained by the police department, and those 2 items have already been approved. So that's my report.
The Utilities Committee.
I'll take that.
Says-
So Utilities Committee met December 2nd. We also talked about the annexation policy amendments. Councilmember Cox addressed those notes. We also talked about proposed amendments to interlocal agreement for cable franchise negotiation consulting services, which this council is well aware of. That's been extended into early next year. We also discussed the water valve operation and maintenance. It was quite interesting to learn about various factors that deal with water valve operation. As you can imagine, we have a lot of water valves out there, and some of them are new and some of them are old. Some of them are different technologies, and so the city is constantly addressing the valves, valve by valve and process by process, to consider, when to replace and upgrade and when to hold. And it's just quite interesting to hear about that. And if I explain the rest, then it would take an hour. So I won't. So look into it. Water valve operation and maintenance, and that's my report.
Next up is the Community Relations and Public Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. We met on the 2nd of December. We welcomed my friend and new council member, Ed Kunkel, to the committee. And it was a great committee. We had 2 items on the agenda. The first was the Lacey Honor Wall project. Staff provided an update to the committee proposing the recognition for the Lacey Honor Wall to include U.S. military who lived in Thurston County and the city of Lacey. The project included updates to council policy and procedures as follows. So section 10.12 is the Spirit of Lacey Award, which is the highest civilian award available to residents of Lacey. They proposed a new section 10.16, which is the Honor Wall, Lacey Honor Wall, and with the criteria of having to be a resident of Thurston County, a member of the U.S. military, and someone that paid the ultimate sacrifice during a U.S. military operation. So that'll be coming to council soon. The other one was the Lacey Veterans Recognition Program. It was proposed that Lacey Veterans Recognition Program would recognize living veterans residing in the community for meritorious achievements during their military service. Eligibility of honorably discharged veterans residing within the city would be viewed based on the following criteria: heroic or meritorious achievements or service in a combat zone resulting in a military decoration, i.e. Purple Heart, Bronze Star, Silver Star, etc. Or heroic acts risking their life or meritorious achievement not involving actual combat resulting in a military decoration, like a soldier's medal or airman's medal, etc. And then 20 or more years of full-time military service, which is, it's really important. Someone that dedicates a career to the military, serving residents, all of us, and freedom really worldwide is very commendable and honorable. And this would give just another avenue to recognize people that dedicated their lives to our way of freedom and liberties. Then the new proposed section 10.17 is the Lacey Veterans Recognition Program, and it'll be coming before us. But it was a great meeting, and I love to recognize our selfless residents of not just Lacey, not just Thurston County, but the state and the nation and worldwide. People that do, serve others. They don't have to, but they choose to. It's really honorable, and it's motivates me. So that was our meeting. That was my report.
Thank you. The Transportation Committee.
So Transportation Committee met December 3rd, and the first item of discussion at the meeting was the State of the Streets report. It's one of my favorite reports in my 12 years on Transportation Committee. Highlights, of course, are the fact that we have an overall index of 87.3, which is good, but the better fact in that fact is that 96.5% of centerline miles of our city streets are rated either very good or in good condition, and only 3.5% of centerline miles are rated as fair or poor condition. So we, as this council knows, Lacey has some of the best, safest, and best maintained roadways of cities all around the country. And that is a factor of diligent planning and preparation and preventative maintenance. Recently, this council adopted a transportation benefit district to handle the preventative care with also technology, certainly keeping on top of the latest available technology for roads. But as we are growing from a small city to a larger city, those costs, because the literal footprint of the roadways goes way up. It's very difficult to have 100% excellent roads because that last few percent get away from you just because a small percent of a large network is quite a lot. So we have a good balance, but look ahead as we grow, oil prices, just volume of roads, and then when we build new roads take a lot of just additional preventative maintenance. So, and then also as the increased traffic on the same road happens, then that road has a shorter life because it has more traffic. Life's not based on time. It's based on how many tires, how many heavy tires from trucks and bigger vehicles go on it. All those factors combined, plus weather. But we do great. We've done great. We're going to continue to do great, and I'll miss it. Thank you. That's my report. Oh, wait, there's more. Slow down. Sidewalk sucker.
Sucker.
So,
Good transition.
got a word picture there, and it is exactly how it sounds. It's a big machine that pulls up square blocks of concrete. As some people don't know, the sidewalks are a responsibility of the city. They're a form of a mode of transportation, pedestrian transportation, and so we're responsible for its maintenance and its safety. So in my neighborhood, when a tree root busts open a sidewalk block, the city has to scramble almost like Keystone Cops and show up and scrape that down so that you're not tripping over it and putting yellow lines on it and arrows or whatever. Well, that's expensive to shave that down, and it works for a year, and then the tree keeps growing. But they also cut the roots of the tree or whatever. So things have improved, and now new tree plants through the arborists are more scientific about what trees they can plant next to a sidewalk. And then they also have better technologies on managing roots so they grow down and don't grow out. But we still have a huge inventory, and it increases more because our new roads get sidewalks. You don't build new roads anymore without a sidewalk. That doesn't happen. And so the city invested in this sidewalk sucker machine and team that goes out and can lift the sidewalk when there's an issue underneath it, deal with the roots, manage that, and replace it with the same block at significant expense. And they have it quite impressively dialed in as far as time to take it up, how much staff, whatnot, and they have a really good metric system to know exactly how much they're saving, what they can do to improve the process to go in there and get those things fixed, and how much they're saving the city. And it's quite impressive. And I'm grateful, and I will miss that report too. That's my report.
Thank you. So now we're on to boards, commissions, and committee reports. I'm up first. The Mayor's Forum met earlier, the first Friday of the month at Tumwater, and we have had a couple conversations about what's going on with public safety in South County. There's some talk in South County of trying to work with the sheriff a little bit about when someone commits a crime but's right outside the city limits, having the ability for the Tenino police to intervene in that circumstance. Right now, that's the sheriff is responsible for that, and so there were the beginning conversations of being able to talk to the sheriff and work on some of those issues. That's more, that's a kind of a bigger issue down there in South County. I know in Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater, we have mutual aid, and as they do as well, but it's who can make an arrest and when they can make an arrest it's a little bit different, I think, in our circumstance compared with a sheriff. And so there was just some beginning conversations of maybe reaching out to the sheriff on that issue. And we heard a update from the latest Bucota festivities, and it was a very successful year. Bucota is actually going to be taking that over. They've been in a contract for the last several years, and they're really starting to get some state recognition and some national recognition for everything they've done. And so we got a little update on that, and it's continued to be a really great time of the year for Bucota, and it's bringing a lot of tourists in, and so we're really, all excited to see how the city is going to take that on and make that even better in years to come. That's the Mayor's Forum. The Transportation Policy Board met on December 11th, 2019, and this was a extended meeting because we're at the time of the year where we're starting to look at the federal funding that's available to our region and start the process of a project selection. I've been talking to this council for a while that the way that we have typically have funded federal projects in Thurston County has really been sort of on a proportional basis. And the state is wanting us to have some more metrics involved in federal funding projects. And so we had a retreat that discussed how we could start implementing some more performance type of measures for federal funding. And this is a big deal because we've sort of had more of a policy-based approach, really since the early 2000s. And one of the other things that has changed is that all the states are now under this use it or lose it policy, where if they receive the federal funding, they have to obligate that funding. They can't just wait years and years for the project to go on. They have to use that federal funding. If they don't obligate and that project isn't ready to go and be able to start using those federal funds, other states can lose that funding. And so the state of Washington has been very good on this use it or lose it policy. And sure enough, another state has lost federal funding, and Washington State was able to receive that funding. And that funding goes to all the regional metropolitan planning organizations, and the Thurston Regional Planning Council is one of them. So we have now looked like we're going to receive an additional $800,000 to program out. And so the majority of this meeting was really sort of talking about what kinds of questions do we want to put on the new application for these federal projects. And so we did agree to put a set aside of some of these funds for our rural communities. And we decided to recommend a 5% set aside of the federal funds for our rural communities. Then we talked about a bunch of different questions that we would like to be a part of this new application. And there was a lot of conversation about, we don't want to make it too onerous on our staff to answer these questions. We don't want them just, questions for questions' sake. But we want to include some questions about project readiness, partnerships and collaborations, the cost efficiency and effectiveness, economic vitality, environmental sustainability, the use of new technologies, making sure we're finishing a current or ongoing project, mobility and accessibility, multimodal operations, and safety, preservation, and maintenance. And along with looking about the equity of using these funds. And so we had a robust conversation, and we agreed to add some of these questions. They're not going to be a requirement, but it's really, we're starting the process to see what's working and what's not working, and how we can use these limited dollars more effectively. We also had a legislative session update. The Thurston Regional Planning Council is very active during our upcoming, during the legislative session, and we are looking at a couple different changes, specifically about adding a section on housing and homelessness as a priority for the region, and to support local and regional climate plans. And then we had our last agenda item was we got an update on the Nathaniel Trail Extension feasibility study findings, and we looked at the process that they went through on looking at this trail extension, and they're looking at for funding opportunities as next steps. The city of Nathaniel is going to consider putting this into their feasibility study into the city's park master plan and comprehensive plan. The town of Dakota is going to adopt the study during their next town council meeting. And then Thurston County is going to include the trail extensions in the Parks, Recreation, and Trails and Natural Resources Preservation Plan and its Parks Impact Fees Program. And then, of course, they're going to evaluate a strategy to acquire their right-of-way. And that is my report. Deputy Mayor.
So the Joint Animal Services Commission, JASCOM, met December 16th, and the main agenda item was approving the 2020 budget. And so what was approved was the total of, and this includes reserves and operating budget, $2,515,202. It included one animal care technician, but it still required us to use some of the reserves to balance the operating budget. Lacey's assessment for the coming year is $284,241, and that has already been built into our budget since, I'm not sure if everyone knows, but we're the fiscal agent for the JASCOM. The board also agreed to have 2 retreats, and one, of course, is to come up with ways to how not to use our reserves, because eventually, even though we have a good, robust reserve balance, it still is taking a toll. And then the other retreat is looking forward to a long-term strategic planning. And then, even though we just received our agenda calendars with assignments, the board changed the date of their meeting to the second Monday at 5:30. And so that needs to be updated so that we know whether or not anyone can or can't take that date, if they're assigned to it. So the Lot Clean Water Alliance met December 11th. There were 3 items on the work session agenda, and we have back-to-back business and work session agendas. We reviewed the minor changes to the updated draft reclaimed water agreements, and there were some tweaks by Tumwater and the county. It didn't make a substantial change to the document, which those changes, the overall changes, were necessary to bring the agreement to what is currently being practiced. And it will come before our individual councils for approval after it's reviewed by our attorneys, I believe. We reviewed Lot's new annual report draft format for 2019-2024, and it's way more concise and easier to read. I remember in 2010 when I was first on Lot, we had a like 250-page draft annual report, very tight lines. I managed to get through it, but I'm not sure what I read at the end. So it's now like 6 pages, there's pictures, it's very, and yet it has quite a bit of data. The data hasn't been totally completed, so this is still in draft form, and the board members were very positive about the layout. It'll make it easier for a layperson to understand. And that will come before us for its final approval in 2020. The septic conversion support program, which I brought up earlier, was a little bit more fleshed out, and it really, it's again based on the existing septic conversion incentive program for property owners, and it provides like that earlier rebate program, 50% of the conversion project. So that's a substantial financial investment by the for both Lot and the jurisdictions. It helps for major projects such as our capital city conversions of 400 households. There's some eligibility requirements. The conversion project is must be at a neighborhood scale and or involves multiple ERUs. rather than individual residents. And the jurisdiction must plan to pay for the full cost of the lot CDC. The technical committee would review the proposals, and once a pre-approved letter is issued, then the CDC is frozen in time. So what that means is when every year when you have to add a 3% increase for inflation costs, that won't count. It will be frozen at the time you receive the letter. So that's good. And there was other additional steps, but the bottom line is that the properties are connected and a lot will provide an instant rebate. And then after about 9 years, based on monthly fees, they will pay back the rebate loan to the jurisdiction. So this is on our business agenda next time in early springs sometime. Our business meeting covered 4 items, and the first item consisted of a hearing on lot surplus equipment. There obviously, well, no, not obviously, but often there's very little comments about this. So after the hearing for the surplus, it was put on the consent agenda and approved. We approved the Washington Street Property Improvements Construction Contract, and it was given to the low bidder Road Construction Northwest for the bid amount of $1,042,230.15, which includes tax. And this project is to demolish a lot-owned building between Washington and Franklin Streets. It's to do stormwater improvements, site grading and paving, fencing, site lighting, and frontage improvements. The last 2 items were information only, consisting of discussion of the master planning update for the 2020-2050 time period. And as many of you know, that lot plans, both 6-year plans, and then does this very large 25-year planning period. And then there were some presentations on performance reports for engineering, operations, and facilities, and the senior leadership team. We then moved into executive session to discuss the executive director's performance evaluation and contract, which was later approved before we adjourned. The Olympic Region Clean Air Agency, or ORCA, doesn't meet in December, and that's my report.
So just as a quick check back in, so lot will now, in our per capital cities conversion, they're going to cover half that cost on the lot side?
Yeah, well, yes, but not yet, because we haven't approved it yet. This is the draft, but it's a rebate of, it's not the full cost, it is the connection fee of that, part of that. So it's not going to cover all of our costs.
Sure.
But it's that one part where the connection fee, instead of doing it single residence, which is what we've done before, and households applied for that, it will do the overall, we'll send in the cost of what that is over 400 households.
Do you have any idea how much that's going to save the city of Lacey?
We haven't figured it out, but maybe you know, because he's on the technical committee.
Yeah, it'd be in the neighborhood of 2 million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's significant.
Nice.
I mean, we haven't passed it yet, though, but all the board members are pretty darn positive about this, because it helps them too in the long run. So I suspect there's not going to be much negative opinion about it, and we may tweak it a little bit depending.
Oh, well, that's really great news.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's still under discussion.
Still under discussion.
yeah.
You're thinking, are you feeling pretty positive about it?
I'm hopeful.
Exactly. I'm going to ask Councilmember Hearn to go last with his report, if that's okay with you, Councilmember Hearn. Councilmember Stedman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, Councilmember Cox, sorry.
Okay,
Oops.
I yield to Council.
thank you. Okay,
And
the
she'll
Regional
yield
Housing
back.
Council held a retreat this afternoon, And the purpose of this was to essentially move this group from what has been an ad hoc committee consisting of representatives of Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, and Thurston County into becoming, a chartered, true interjurisdictional organization. So we had all 4 of the jurisdictions present today, and it was a very positive conversation. I was really pleased about that. The discussions were centered around establishing a mission statement and vision statement for the council, the elements to be included in a formal interlocal agreement, and then major priorities for moving forward. The priorities we identified today through a series of exercises with sticky dots on the lists of ideas that we came up with were to increase shelters and housing in Thurston County, to implement the county's 5-year homelessness plan, to establish a clearinghouse for housing policies so that we can create a consistency among the 4 jurisdictions. And case in point is Tumwater has really done some great work on tenant protections designed to help people stay in housing rather than fall into homelessness. And Olympia now is borrowing parts of that and starting to replicate it. And we're looking at trying to have consistent policies across all 4 jurisdictions. We think this will help tenants and it will help landlords who don't have to operate by multiple sets of rules. There'll be one set of rules across the line for them. And I'm optimistic that there are other policies we can share so that we don't sit in silos and literally have to reinvent the wheel, for each jurisdiction. I think that will probably save a lot of time and money for all of us. Community outreach and communications was the 4th priority, and then, of course, drafting the interlocal agreement itself was the 5th. Olympia City Council member Jim Cooper will continue as chair, and I will continue as vice chair for the group until we can lay out our governing documents and actually elect officers. The retreat was very ably facilitated by Mark Daly. He's the executive director of Thurston Regional Planning Council, and I think he got us to a really good place today, which is kind of a heavy lift when you're talking about representatives from 4 different governments, and we all have our own ways of doing things and our own priorities, and it's a little bit like trying to herd cats. So it was, I thought he did an able job. And then, Thurston Regional Planning Council met on December 6th. The mayor's already talked about the Yelm-Tenino Trail Extension Feasibility Study, but we found that quite interesting. We also went over a document called the 2019 Profile, and this is a profile of statistics of almost any measure you can think of Thurston County. It includes land use, population, demographics, housing, transportation, employment, jobs, economics, on and on and on. And it is available on the Thurston Regional Planning Council website, and great for trivia. In fact, to introduce this and make it a little easier to digest, they played the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire game, where we all had to divide into teams and try to answer trivia questions from out of the thing.
I always lose.
I was surprised I got one right this time, but anyway, there's a lot of great information there. We also talked about priorities for the 2020 legislative session. And then Mark Daly, the executive director, briefed us on the final technical analysis and draft results for the Interstate 5 Mounts Road to Tumwater study. And we talked about weighting, WEIGHT criteria, and how that has a strong impact on the recommendations. The State Department of Transportation is completing the draft report, and we'll be asking for feedback in January, so we'll want to keep a close eye on that and weigh in. That document also is available on the Thurston Regional Planning Council website. We adopted the 2020 to 2022 strategic plan, and Once again, it's available on the website if you're interested in that. And for those who like to come to these council meetings, they're typically held at 8:30 in the morning on the first Friday of the month, but in January, they're going to move it to the 10th to give time staff to work on budget. So if it's on your calendar, be sure you note it that it's on the 10th. And believe it or not, that's my report.
Thank you. So now we'll go to Councilmember Stedman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have no report. I just wanted to wish the council and all the residents of Lacey and Thurston County a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's, however you prefer the saying be. I got my Mount Suribachi Marine Corps themed Christmas shirt on tonight. And I wanted to just give a shout out to my nephew who graduated from Cannoneer School today in Fort Sill. He graduated honor man of the class, and he scored a 99.5% and was meritoriously promoted to E3 and Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps, and in just a little bit over 6 months. So he's averaging a promotion every 2 months. So this time in February, he should be picking up E4 as a E Corporal.
Wow.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Yeah. But I'm obviously really proud of him. He's the fifth one of the Stedman family of our small legacy of Marine service in the Marine Corps. Our dad was Army, love him to death, but he had 3 Marine sons and 2 Marine grandsons, but we're proud of him, and just like he's proud of us. So other than that, tomorrow's Red Friday. Remember, everybody deployed. They're they're in theaters of operation and in a time of war, and they're not with their families. They're not going to enjoy Christmas dinners and stuff. So if you can wear red and remember them until they're all home, that's just something I wanted to suggest.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Kunkel.
Good evening. So our Thurston EDC board met yesterday, and I was honored and to be appointed to the board at that time. Some of the interesting highlights gained from the meeting: the Washington Procurement Technical Assistance Center, PTAC, is working on a seed resource for innovation in Thurston County. They appear to be working in conjunction with Small Business Innovative Research and intend to gather seed resources from organizations such as the SBA to bring new engineering and innovation to our community, which is surely to put Thurston County and particularly Lacey on the map for future technology hub. The plan is not quite yet ready for prime time, but it's currently labeled Innovation Station. The Thurston EDC has just published their Economic Vitality Index for 2019. And to summarize, the indicators remain in positive territory in regards to the health of our economic forces. However, there is some sentiment that a recession should be on the horizon. And lastly, the EDC budget is currently in the red. Reasons stated for this revolved around timing and implementation of economic effectiveness of some programs the EDC has committed to with lower than anticipated involvement and success. And that is my report.
Thank you. And for the last time, Councilmember Hearn.
Well, thank you. So my report tonight is 2. My first report is about TCAT, Thurston County Coalition Against Trafficking. Another reminder that January 30th this year at the Lacey Community Center will be the Community Conversations. It's already building up to be quite an event, and we encourage you to consider joining us for a community conversation about human trafficking and the fight against it. And if it's anything like the previous years, it'll be very well attended and very productive. So my next report would be to briefly, I'd like to try to take under 3 minutes because that's what our citizenry gets, even though some of my reports are longer than that. And just state that after 12 years here, my feelings are of absolute gratefulness and thankfulness. I am so thankful for the opportunity to have been able to serve in a capacity of a council member here in Lacey. It's been amazing to learn, what it takes to run a city. The only way you could come close to learning that is watching a Mr. Rogers episode. He can maybe do a lot in a short time. But watch that movie if you haven't, about Mr. Rogers, the current movie. But it's just amazing to learn what you didn't know. And I'm just super thankful for it. I'm thankful to the voters who elected me. I'm thankful to the voters that did not vote for me, because it was a privilege to serve all of them. I'm thankful that this is an at-large council where we can serve our entire community. I'm thankful for the staff who reported to our committees over the years about the great, hard, smart, efficient, diligent work that they do to make our city safe and strong and economically viable. I'm very thankful for the directors and your excellence in what you do, all of you. Just phenomenal what you bring to the table for our city. Thank you to our new police chief, for our police department, and a thank you to all the past council members that are here. Some of them have passed on. Some of them are still around the community, but just what a tradition. I'm thankful for being a part of this phenomenal history that we have, and the fact that we work so hard. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your work on that committee, to preserve our history and to promote it. I'm thankful to this council. I'm thankful for the free press. I'm glad you're here tonight. I am thankful for the free press, very much so. I'm thankful for the other communities in our area and for interacting with Olympia, Tumwater, and the county. What a greater community we have. And I'm also thankful for our schools, both private and public. And I'm thankful for how well this city interacts with them. Every meeting has that. Just a little tiny factoid, I just quickly added it up. If you average 2 meetings a week, just 2, times 4.3 weeks a month, times 12 months, times 12 years, that's over 2,400 meetings that I've attended. And it's likely, possibly, maybe closer to 4 meetings a week, but maybe 3, but no, I take that back. 2,400 is 4. 1,200 plus 12, that's a lot of meetings. 1,200 plus is 2 meetings a week. I was reading the wrong math. So somewhere between 1,200 and 2,400 meetings. And they've all been fascinating. Some of them been lively. But we got through it.
Don't look at me.
And our democracy, our republic, just completely smokes other governments in the world where you deal with things not civilly. So I'm very, very thankful for the civics that we have and enjoy. And I'm thankful for the many, many, many people, Americans throughout history, that have served, suffered, and died for our freedom so that we can be here today and run our own government in a safe, intelligent, compassionate, thoughtful way so that we can be a part of making for the best possible quality of life that our citizens enjoy. And it's just an amazing gift. Freedom is not free. I'm thankful for our veterans. I'm thankful for the work that we've done, the leadership that we've all taken, that our city manager and staff have taken to just honor our veterans here, being at one of the largest bases in the world, here at JBLM, and honoring that with the hub that we have, and then circling back with the schools, doing the same thing for the schools. It's just, I'm just grateful to be a part of it, is my term over at the end of the year, Counselor, or January 1 or something? Do you know?
December
31?
30th at midnight.
31st. Okay. Well, I'm going to relish these next couple of weeks, and I might like to stop by and say hi and thank you individually a little bit. And I've exceeded my time. You didn't knock the knocker there on me. And, well, you know, the guy that invented the door knocker and got the patent for it, he also won the Nobel Prize.
Okay.
I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I will sign off by saying, regardless of what your religious beliefs are, I encourage everybody to take some time and think about turning from their own ways and putting their trust in the Savior, living forever and being changed. Thank you.
So it's not over quite yet. You know, this is Councilmember Hearn's last meeting of 12 years of service, and he's our longest tenured member on this council. And you know, when Cynthia and I first came on the council, the one thing that we've always realized is the level of decorum that we have here at the City of Lacey. We may not always agree, but we've always acted in a way of civil discourse and understanding that we all care so much about this city. We may have a different opinions on how we serve our citizens, but we all care about this great city of Lacey. And Jason has just been a great example of decorum. You know, his little witty humor that he always has every meeting will be missed. And you've been a steadfast member of this council for a long time, and a part of a lot of amazing things that have happened in the city of Lacey over the past 12 years. Just think about how far we've come as a city over these 12 years. You know, 12 years ago, we were in the start of a major downturn at the city, you know, across the world, and every city was hit. Lacey, through a lot of smart planning and great fiscal policy, was able to get through that time with really minimal service reductions at all to our citizens. And that has a lot to do with the people who have been on this council before us. And we have always taken that to heart. The fiscal responsibility of the city is a hallmark of Lacey. And Jason has been steadfast in that, always making sure we've stayed fiscally responsible in all decisions that we've made. And so on behalf of the whole council, we have a little gift that we'd like you to come up here and open. Jason, Councilmember Hearn just mentioned earlier, he's been on our transportation committee his entire tenure in the city of Lacey, and if you look at how crazy our traffic has gotten, how much more population has come to Lacey, and how the city has managed that, it has a lot to do with Jason being the chair of the transportation committee and being on top of these things for a long time. And so, if you'd like, you can hopefully open this up real quick.
It's just nice wrapping.
Yeah, I know.
Mom always told me to save the wrapping.
I didn't. I didn't wrap. Who wrapped this?
Another example of excellence. Oh, we have an engineer. A lawyer.
No.
No?
You really taped the heck out of this. Is this Scott?
Is that the trick?
This is
Like one of those white elephant gifts.
this is on tape. I mean, on camera too.
Let's see. That ribbon's doesn't want to come off, does it?
You almost got it. You got it. There it is.
So it says, Councilmember Hearn, thank you for your 12 years of public service to the community, and it gives the time that
that's
you're on the
wonderful.
council.
That's
And I
wonderful.
think it's something hopefully you can display prominently. You're a huge, huge part of this community over the past 12 years. Your leadership, as the deputy mayor and as council member, will not be forgotten.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, buddy, for everything you've done today.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well,
Can't put this in my pocket.
so, so his work's not done. We are going to be adjourning to a work session to talk about our emergency housing regulations. Just want to give a quick shout out to everyone, all of our citizens in Lacey. Hope you have a safe and happy holidays, and we will see you next year. And as always, you keep it classy, Lacey, and I'll call this meeting adjourned as we go to a work session.
Thank you.